everyone, welcome to another Random Talk Sunday. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be here this Sunday, so I'm going to be uploading Sunday's video today as well. So without further ado, let's get started and have me discuss food. Now, some people might be wondering, why in the world is she even bringing this up? Like, food is just food. I mean, we eat it, we create it. What's the point about discussing food? Well, the thing about food is it has such a impact on everybody's life. I mean, and there's places around the world where people don't really have the excessive food that we have here within the Western world, and in some other cultural and some other different cultures like within Asia and who are also fairly prosperous. But I mean, generally speaking, in poorer areas, we don't really see a whole lot of people who are able to have access to food and, have the sort of luxury of enjoying food and things like that. And what's there not to love about food? I mean, when you look at food, like, it's just looking to food to me is, it's like an art, it's like a piece of artwork, so to speak. I guess that's why they have such things as like, food porn, as they call it. They just try to make the food look so good. But I'm actually one of those people who's not really particularly picky when it comes to food, actually. I mean, I enjoy all kinds of food, whether it be Asian, Italian, American, Mexican, Swiss, because my mom's from Switzerland, so I get a lot of Swiss food. European, like French or German, Eastern countries too also have some good stuff. All over, it's just fascinating, the vast differences between different cultures and their food, even though they do use similar things, like they'll have chicken and pork and all that. It's just the way that they prepare things and the way they kind of just organize the food, and what they include with the food is also very different. And I find that to be something that's just so intriguing about food. It's not just something you eat. It's a cultural experience. It's a way of understanding, what that culture in particular has to offer. I guess the only foods I'd say that do rub me the wrong way are ones that are fairly spicy, or if they have way too much flavor to them, like if they're just too strong, then I think that's something that doesn't appeal to me. But I'm sure there's some people who do like the strong flavors, or like the spice to certain foods. For me, it's just too much. But again, for example, it makes sense that Japanese food is largely based in seafood, because Japan is an island surrounded by water. It only makes sense that they would have fish as their sort of primary meal, so to speak, or have it part of their primary meal. Sushi being a big example. I actually really like sushi, even though I know there's probably some people who are like, no, sushi, it's raw fish, no, don't eat it, Michelle. And I say, but it's good, it's sushi. But I think, though, too, like, if you go to, for example, China, they have tons of different, flavors that we in Western culture probably don't use as often, or in the same way. And there's also different versions of different kinds of food. Like, for example, Panda Express is definitely not the same as going to a gourmet Chinese restaurant, Olive Garden is definitely not the same as traditional Italian cuisine. um, there's certain things that have been sort of, I guess you could say, uh, made more of, generally speaking, um, like the way in which certain restaurants operate is really what determines the kind of the quality of the food. And if you maybe eat at Olive Garden, maybe you're turned completely off by Italian food, even though it's not a real representation maybe of Italian food. Del Taco is another perfect example of maybe not a good representation of what Mexican food really actually tastes like. Um, so we've kind of done this thing where we've made different cultural kinds of foods, but in a sense that it loses its kind of its effort and sort of ingenuity, so to speak, and its sort of cultural significance. Restaurants and food that try to create food that's really not really the same or as of good quality as the traditional recipes, so to speak. And uh, and I- and I think that's just something that's I think important to understand, because food is as much of an art as it is part of a culture and part of a you know a means of gathering together and sort of sharing experiences. um and it's that's what I think is what this is why I like talking about this kind of stuff, because it's the simple things. It's the simple, just have a nice meal with some wine. I mean, it's not much, but it means, it might seem not it might seem not bleh, it might not seem much, but it means the world. Because it's what allows you to live. So I think, there's just this sense of overlooking food and, kind of just treating it as, it's just food, oh, we eat it, and it's But I think, the more effort you put into making food, the more I think you kind of enjoy eating it. Even though I'm not such a huge fan of cooking, I prefer baking. I still enjoy cooking if I'm doing it with somebody else, or if we're doing it together. And usually I enjoy baking more if I do that as well, because that's always nice. And you get to kind of experiment and sort of do your own thing and see what works and what doesn't work. Um, whereas with a restaurant, you pay for what you get. Um, but I think overall there is this deep appreciation I have for food. Doesn't mean that, I constantly think about food or want to, eat all of the unhealthy food. I mean, I like variety. Um, if I'm eating one type of food one day, I'm definitely not eating the same the next day. So I kind of like to mix things up a bit, I guess you could say. Um, and yeah, and I think um, overall, food is just something that, you know, people sometimes I think waste too. Like, can you imagine like all the things that haven't been like eaten, or haven't been, you know I mean, I understand if it's really bad food and you don't want to eat it, but at the same time, I like the idea of saving things, of, having the leftovers. And heck, they even say, like for certain foods, for example, like lasagna is actually, the leftovers are actually better than the actual lasagna that you end up eating. So again, I think it holds, so much, and and it's a way of bringing people together. It's a way of, showcasing culture. It's a way of a way of life that just everybody has to have, because everybody needs to eat. And I think we usually don't talk about those kinds of simple things. So I thought within this video it would be nice just to address my little quick thoughts on it. I'm sure there's other people who have different thoughts when it comes to food and what they enjoy doing with food and what they don't enjoy doing with food. But as far as its value, I think its value will always be there, and and will continue to be there. And I think having a variety, and trying new things is always a good thing. Um, Even if unless you feel hesitant, as far as some very or as far as very untraditional kinds of cuisine is concerned, for example, like things like monkey and all that, I don't think I could vision myself eating that. But at the same time, um, there are some interesting things out there, and I would definitely recommend, trying whatever you can, because you never know. It may taste good, it may taste bad, but at the end of the day, you can say that you tried it, and then like what you like and what you don't like. But yeah, I think that's really ultimately all I can say, when it comes to this particular topic. But I find it fascinating. I'd love to hear what people's favorite foods are and what they enjoy the most, and what they find to be really good, what they find to be really bad. Um, but yeah, I think that's really ultimately all I can say for this video. If there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you all in the next video.